Jack's Path of Courage: The Life of John F. Kennedy. Written by Doreen Rappaport. Illustrated by Matt Tavares. John F. Kennedy, called Jack by family and friends, was the second oldest of 4 boys and 5 girls in a wealthy, close-knit family. Jack's mother read to her children every night. He always read more than any of the others. Books took Jack on adventures with the mischievous goat Billy Whisker, with Peter Pan and Tinker Bell, and with King Arthur's brave knights in the kingdom of Camelot. Jack's father pushed his children to compete with each other and do their very best. Come in a winner, second place is not good. Jack's father's dream was for his oldest son, Joe, to become the first Catholic president of the United States. Joe excelled in everything. Jack tried to keep up with Joe. He didn't succeed in school, even though his father pushed him to do better. I have been doing a little worrying about my studies because of what Dad said about me starting off great and then going down. Joe was a college football star. Jack tried out for the team, but he wasn't strong enough and hurt his back playing. Swimming was his sport, and he helped his team win many medals. Jack's college record was only fair, but he received a better grade than Joe did on his senior thesis. His father congratulated him. "I always knew you were smart." He sent Jack's thesis to a reporter who helped Jack rewrite it, gave it a more interesting title, and helped get it published. Why England Slept made 23-year-old Jack famous. When Jack turned 24, the United States was at war. Jack commanded a PT boat in the South Pacific. The Americans and Japanese were locked in fierce combat. This job is really the greatest spot of the Navy. You are your own boss, and it's like sailing around as in the old days. One night on a mission, a Japanese destroyer rammed Jack's PT boat, splitting it in half and re-injuring Jack's back. 2 men died instantly. The 11 survivors clung to the wreckage, waiting to be rescued. No one came. After 9 hours, Jack ordered them to swim. One man was too burned to swim, so Jack put the man's life vest strap between his teeth and pulled him. After 5 hours, the crew reached a small island 4 miles away. Jack left his men there. Currents battered his tired body as he swam to an area where PT boats patrolled. He treaded water for an hour, but no boats came. He swam back to his men. He battled the seas 2 more times and did not find help. After 5 days, 2 islanders who were American scouts found them. Jack received 3 medals for his courage and leadership. Asked how he had become a hero, he answered, "It was involuntary. They sank my boat." Joe was a courageous war pilot, but on his 51st flight, his plane exploded. His death devastated the family. Jack's father told Jack, now that Joe was dead, he had to go into politics. I can feel Pappy's eyes on the back of my neck. Jack didn't think he had the ability or the strength to run for public office. His back was never free from pain. A year later, he ran for Congress from a neighborhood in Boston. For 8 months, day and night, he was at factories and shipyards, on trolley cars and street corners, and in barbershops and fire stations. He shook thousands of hands and gave hundreds of speeches. He told women whose sons had died in battle, "My mother is a Gold Star mother too." People liked the handsome war hero with his warm smile, easy manner, and seemingly endless energy. He won the election easily. Jack served 3 terms in Congress, then won a seat in the Senate. But before he could take office, he had 2 back operations. In bed for 5 months, he thought about the challenges of being a lawmaker. He decided to write a book about 8 senators who had risked their careers by standing up for what they believed in. Several people helped in research and writing. A man does what he must in spite of personal consequences, obstacles, dangers, and pressures. The book, Profiles in Courage, won the Pulitzer Prize for biography. Jack served 3 terms in Congress, then won a seat in the Senate, but before he could take office, he had 2 back operations. In bed for 5 months, he thought about the challenges of being a lawmaker. He decided to write a book about 8 senators who had risked their careers by standing up for what they believed in. Several people helped in the research and writing. A man does what he must in spite of personal consequences, obstacles, dangers, and pressures. The book, Profiles in Courage, won the Pulitzer Prize for biography. Jack was in the spotlight again. In 1960, he ran for president. He created a message of hope and used television to bring it to millions. We stand on the edge of a new frontier. The new frontier is not a set of promises, it is a set of challenges. Americans liked his bold ideas, but even friends said he could not win because he was Catholic. Many people were prejudiced against Catholics then. Jack refused to ignore the issue. He spoke directly about it on television. I believe in a president whose views on religion are his own private affair. He narrowly won the election. He asked his advisors to help him make his inaugural speech memorable and inspirational. On a bitterly cold day, January 20th, 1961, the world listened to America's youngest president ever elected. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. His words inspired people all over the globe. The White House had a new spirit. The elegant First Lady, Jacqueline Kennedy, welcomed artists and writers and musicians into her new home. The Kennedy children, John Jr. and Caroline, played all over the White House grounds. Americans enjoyed Kennedy's directness and wit. How do you like being president? The problems are more difficult than I thought they would be. It is much easier to make the speeches than make the judgments. Asked the question another time, he playfully answered, "The pay is good and I can walk to work." Few people knew that the young, vital president had serious health problems and was in constant pain. The United States and the Soviet Union competed for world power then. The Soviets sent experts to help people in developing countries. Kennedy created the Peace Corps. We have men and women anxious to sacrifice their energies and time and toil to the cause of world peace and human progress. Thousands of Americans, young and old, built schools and roads and sewers and taught children all over the world. He announced that America would beat the Soviets to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they were hard. Less than 10 years later, 2 American astronauts walked on the moon. But not all of Kennedy's decisions were wise. 3 months into office, he approved an invasion of Cuba, a country 90 miles from Florida. Cuba's leader was a Soviet ally. The invasion was a disaster. "I'm the responsible officer of the government," he told Americans on television. 8 months later, the Soviets put nuclear missiles aimed at the United States and Cuba. Kennedy demanded they be removed. For 13 anxious days, the world feared war between these two superpowers. Finally, the Soviets backed down, and the United States pledged not to invade Cuba. The two superpowers had enough bombs to destroy each other. Kennedy wanted to end the weapons race. His military advisors were against any ban on testing weapons. Kennedy met with the Soviet premier. He sent advisors back and forth with letters and proposals. Negotiations seemed deadlocked, but on July 25th, 1963, the two countries agreed to the first major test ban treaty. This treaty is an important first step toward peace and reason. Kennedy also faced conflict in the United States. Southern blacks were protesting for equal rights. Whites beat them and murdered them. Black leaders asked the president to help stop the violence. For 2 years he hesitated, worried that if he helped, white Southern lawmakers would not vote for his other programs. Finally, he took a firm stand and called for new laws protecting the black Americans. 100 years have passed since President Lincoln freed the slaves, yet their hairs are not fully free. This nation will not be fully free until all its citizens are free. In November 1963, Kennedy decided to visit some western states where he had done poorly with voters. As thousands cheered his motorcade through Dallas, Texas, he was shot and killed. His sudden death shocked and saddened the world. A man may die, nations may rise and fall, but an idea lives on. The new president, Lyndon B. Johnson, carried out Kennedy's legacy. Johnson used his political skills to convince Congress to pass new programs that bettered the lives of all Americans, laws that guaranteed voting rights for all, medical care for the elderly, and educational opportunities for the very young.